Jack Cross had almost given up on dating. At 34, he was a man defined by quiet, persistent loneliness. He had grown weary of the superficiality of modern romance, the endless, hollow conversations that led nowhere, the ghosted messages that left him questioning his own worth, and the promises of connection that dissolved long before a first meeting could ever be arranged. On a cold, gray October evening, he sat alone in his dimly lit apartment with rain tapping rhythmically against the window panes. In a moment of weary resignation, he began absently scrolling through one last dating app, intending to delete his profile and bid farewell to the digital search for companionship forever. Then he saw her, Eleanor, 31. She looked as though she had stepped directly out of a dusty, forgotten Victorian painting. Her skin was impossibly pale, possessing a porcelain-like quality that seemed almost otherworldly. Long, raven black hair cascaded over her shoulders, framing soft, luminous gray eyes that caught the dim light of her photograph and shimmered like polished silver. She was dressed in a delicate, high-collared black lace dress, and the subtle, wistful curve of her smile carried a profound, ancient sadness that instantly ignited a desire in Jack to know her story, to soothe whatever invisible burden she carried. Her profile contained only one sentence: "I believe love should last forever." He smiled, a genuine feeling of intrigue washing over him. Before he could even deliberate, his phone vibrated against his palm. "It's a match." Their conversations quickly became the singular highlight of his evenings. Eleanor was entirely disinterested in the standard, mundane topics of careers, money, or the weather. Instead, she asked piercing, philosophical questions that lingered in his thoughts long after they stopped talking, haunting him in the quiet hours of the night. "What scares you the most?" she asked during their first real exchange. "Have you ever mistaken simple loneliness for true love?" She mused later. "If someone loved you forever, would you stay?" Sometimes she would abruptly vanish for hours, leaving him staring at the screen in confusion. When she eventually returned, her explanations were always unsettlingly vague. "Sorry," she would type. "My spiders needed me." Jack laughed, shaking his head. "You really have spiders?" "Hundreds," she replied. "You must like them." "I understand them." A week later, she invited him to dinner. She lived in an enormous, sprawling Victorian mansion tucked deep within a dense, ancient pine forest several miles outside of town. The GPS on his car refused to recognize the address, displaying only a blank screen. So she texted him a set of handwritten directions that felt like something plucked from a Gothic fairy tale. By the time Jack arrived, a heavy twilight had settled over the woods, cloaking the trees in deep, suffocating shadows. The mansion loomed above the treetops like a decaying, abandoned cathedral. Its weathered, blackened walls were almost entirely obscured beneath a thick, suffocating blanket of ivy and countless intricate spiderwebs that shimmered with ghostly, pale light in the dying sun. It should have frightened him. It should have been a red flag that prompted him to turn the car around and drive back to the safety of his apartment. Instead, he felt a strange, magnetic pull, a sense of belonging that felt both intoxicating and dangerous. It felt, to his weary heart, strangely enchanting. Eleanor welcomed him at the threshold with a warm, gentle smile. She was even more striking in person. Her skin looked translucent beneath the flicker of the candlelight, and she smelled faintly of crushed roses and damp, rain-soaked earth. The interior of the mansion was impeccably elegant, yet strangely, unnervingly empty. There were no family photographs on the mantelpieces, no signs of life, no servants. There were, however, portraits of Eleanor hanging throughout the sprawling halls. Every painting depicted her wearing clothing from a different era, from the high-waisted silhouettes of the Regency period to the structured gowns of the late Victorian age. Yet, despite the passage of centuries, her face never changed. She looked 25 in every single portrait, frozen in time. Dinner was perfect. Soft, haunting music echoed through the dining room, and expensive wine filled their glasses. They laughed together for hours, the chemistry between them palpable. Only one thing seemed truly odd. Eleanor never touched a morsel of her meal.
"You aren't hungry?"
Jack asked, leaning forward. She smiled softly, her silver eyes unfocused.
"I eat differently."
That night, the storm intensified, and rain began to pound violently against the windows.
"The roads will surely flood by morning."
Eleanor said, her voice smooth and persuasive.
"Stay."
Ethan agreed without hesitation. She showed him to a guest bedroom that overlooked the dark, rustling forest. The room was immaculate, yet felt devoid of any personal history. They both went to bed in separate, ornate rooms, but sleep eluded Jack. Something brushed across his face in the dark. He woke instantly. Silk. Still half asleep, he reached upward into the gloom. His finger touched thick, sticky strands stretching taut across the ceiling. He opened his eyes, and the breath left his lungs. The entire ceiling had vanished beneath a shifting, writhing ocean of spiders. Thousands crawled silently overhead, their tiny, rhythmic legs creating a soft, insistent clicking sound that filled the room. They were all moving toward him, converging on the bed. The bedroom door slammed shut with a finality that made his blood run cold. A familiar, melodic voice drifted through the darkness.
"I'd hoped you'd sleep longer."
Eleanor stood beside the bed. She smiled, but it was a smile filled with profound, tragic sadness.
"I'm sorry."
Then, her body began to betray her human form. Her spine arched with a sharp, sickening crack. Bones snapped and rearranged themselves beneath her porcelain skin. Her shoulders split open with a wet sound, and 4 glossy obsidian black legs erupted from her back, followed quickly by 4 more. Her abdomen swelled and distended until it morphed into a bulbous, monstrous body of a giant black widow spider, covered in fine, midnight-colored hairs and marked by a vivid, crimson hourglass that pulsed in the dark like a heartbeat. Her human face remained somewhat heartbreakingly beautiful, though her jaw seemed to have extra parts, revealing sharp, dripping fangs. She looked at him with an expression of genuine, if twisted, affection.
"They call me the Black Widow,"
she whispered. She moved with terrifying, fluid speed, silk exploding from beneath her massive abdomen, lashing out like whips. It wrapped around Jack before he could even attempt to reach the door. His arms were pinned to his sides. His legs were bound tightly together. Within seconds, he lay helpless inside layers of impossibly strong, suffocating webbing. He expected her to strike immediately, to end it with a bite. Instead, she gently reached out with one of her arachnid limbs and brushed a stray hair from his forehead.
"I never wanted this curse,"
she said, tears rolling down her cheeks.
But hunger always wins.
Two long, venomous fangs unfolded beneath her lips. She pierced his neck with surgical precision. Fire spread instantly through his veins, turning his muscles to lead. He remained fully awake, paralyzed, unable to move or even scream as the poison took hold. She carried him effortlessly through a series of hidden, narrow passages tucked beneath the foundation of the mansion. The cellar was a graveyard of hope. Hundreds of enormous, dusty cocoons hung from the damp ceiling like macabre ornaments. Some looked ancient and yellowed, while others were fresh and white. Faces were pressed faintly against the interior of the silk. Eyes blinked in the dark, darting back and forth in terror. A man no older than Jack wept silently inside his cocoon. Another mouthed words that no sound could carry. They were alive, held in a state of suspended animation, waiting. Eleanor suspended Jack beside them. Her silk hardened around his body until only his face remained exposed.
You'll keep me company.
She whispered, her voice echoing in the gloom.
I like hearing people breathe.
Days blurred into weeks. The venom prevented him from falling into the mercy of sleep, and it prevented the sweet release of death. Time became a meaningless concept. Occasionally, Eleanor would descend into the cellar, sit beneath the hanging cocoons, and read old, leather-bound books or play classical music on a portable device, as if entertaining dinner guests.
I'm sorry,
She would say to the row of trapped men.
I always choose kind men.
One evening, she brought Jack upstairs briefly, clutching an old journal.
My condition isn't a curse alone.
She said quietly.
It's my nature.
She turned the journal toward him. Inside was a hand-drawn illustration of a black widow spider, accompanied by dense, frantic notes. A black widow does not simply drink blood, the text read. She immobilizes her prey, injects powerful digestive enzymes into the body, and waits. Those enzymes dissolve the victim's tissues from within until the inside becomes liquid nourishment. Then she drinks what remains, leaving only an empty shell behind. Eleanor closed the book.
My body works the same way.
Jack's blood turned to ice. No, he mumbled through trembling lips. She nodded sadly.
My venom keeps you alive while the enzymes do their work.
The following night, she returned. She rested a gentle, cold hand against his cheek.
I'm truly sorry.
She whispered. Then she bit him again. He was returned to the cellar. At first, he felt nothing but the crushing weight of the silk. But hours later, a deep, gnawing ache began to spread through his bones. His muscles burned with chemical fire, and his chest tightened. Inside his body, he could feel his very essence melting away. The pain was absolute, transcending the physical, yet he could not die. Hour after hour, the agony intensified. His vision blurred, and his breathing grew wet and labored. He realized, with a surge of primal horror, that he could no longer feel his arms, then his legs. They were not gone, but they had ceased to be part of him. They had been reduced to nothingness. Everything beneath his skin was slowly dissolving into a liquid state. He remained conscious through every agonizing second of his own dissolution. When Eleanor finally returned, tears streamed down her face. She stroked his hair one last time.
I really do like you, Jack. And to prove it, I'm going to spare you from any more suffering and feed on you now.
He tried to scream, but he had no lungs left to push the air. She lowered her lips to the tiny opening in the cocoon. A long, terrible silence filled the cellar, broken only by muffled, rhythmic sounds of the other prisoners, who closed their eyes, unable to bear the sight. Then, there was a faint, sickening sound, like someone sucking the last bit of liquid from a glass through a straw. When she finished, she wiped her lips and gently lowered what remained of Jack's cocoon to the floor. It collapsed with almost no weight. Inside lay only his discarded clothing, his wedding ring from a life that never was, and a paper-thin, translucent shell of skin, perfectly intact from head to toe. He was completely empty, as though the man inside had simply evaporated. Eleanor quietly carried the hollow, discarded skin into a hidden chamber where hundreds of others hung like forgotten garments. A gallery of lost souls from centuries of lonely meals. She climbed the cellar stairs, wiped the tears from her beautiful, ageless face, and opened her phone. A new match waited on the screen. She smiled a sad, practiced smile and began to type.
Hi, I'm Eleanor. I believe love should last forever.
Far below, the cellar grew silent once more. The hanging cocoons swayed gently in the darkness of the tomb. One by one, the trapped men began to weep. They knew she was bringing someone else home, which meant their own turn to be reduced to nothing more than an empty, hollow skin was drawing ever closer. The cycle of the Black Widow would continue, eternal and hungry, feeding on the kindness of those who sought love in the dark.